All right. So yeah, we're going to be doing some editing lesson today and some working with some of these edit tools here in Adobe Audition. So what I have set up for here is just a very basic Audition from no template, actually. It was no template was created in this one. Again, if you need to log in, you're going to be using your AM audio or PM audio plus the number at wsbosse's.org to log in. You're aware of this. Password is password if it prompts you for one. Once you do that, you're going to get into this screen where you would click on Multitrack, and then you could start a new Multitrack session. Again, make sure you label it with your initials, Project 1. Make sure you put it on the desktop. You can use a template. Alejandro and I yesterday actually worked on going down to the code level, computer code level, to change a template to a very specific sample rate, and we did it. I did it on his machine. But you don't have to do it that way. You could say none, and then you could type in your sample rate. You could type in your bit rate, and then when you do that, very easily, you have a brand new project. Now, they don't do great things like magically show you the track name. There's no track name here, and there's no routing here. If I jump back into this, you can hear me again, but it doesn't mean the Zoom wasn't recording. So, and you can see that the tracks now are non-customized, and that's what you'll have to do. You can go change your track title and your colors and all that other stuff. If you have light blue pants on and a red top, and you want your tracks to match the wardrobe you're wearing, you can customize that. It's pretty cool. Takes a lot of time. See, look at that. You can customize your tracks and your waveforms and all that other stuff. We don't need to do that. So again, this was the multi-track layout. If you start it correctly, you will get your project on board to continue to be openable the next day. That's a big thing. When you open and you're missing audio, you don't want to do that. When you started your project, you also had this folder here. Check this out. That created your SESX file, which is your Audition file, and a backup folder. Now, I don't have any audio in here yet. So once I stick audio in here, I should start getting another folder that tells me about my imported audio. So let's import some audio, right? That's where the notes today pick up, or kind of left off yesterday. In order to bring audio into the project, I should have it on my desktop where I usually leave stuff. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag and drop. All right. Now, this is telling me that my file has a different sample rate than the project. And it does. If you look at the bottom, 4832. I'm 4824. So it's going to have to convert it a little bit, and I don't mind that. It's not going to really hurt anything that it converts it. So I'll let it do it. There you go. Do that for me, please. So there's my audio file. I wonder if it plays back. Let's hear. It does. How about that? See, yesterday's it didn't. Okay, so what do we get out of that? Well, we got an audio file that converted to 4832, which doesn't really change the audio. Let's take a look at what happened in the project really fast. We open up the project. Oh, look at that. We do have a folder now called conformed files, which ends up giving me my converted file from 4824 to 4832 to conform to the project settings. So that means this audio now is locked into the project. It will be in that folder. And at the end of the day, when I make a copy of it, when I archive it, it will be all together. It won't be separate. Let's go through some tools here. I think that's going to be part of the process. Now, when I started Audition, the first one I am given by default usually is the Move tool. So the Move tool is interesting in that it kind of conforms or changes to where you are within the project. When I'm not clicked on an audio clip, it looks like it's a marquee tool. Marquee is usually that. Everyone see the marquee that I'm creating? Which allows me to just select the track that I'm on, or I could just click. So if I had to cut and paste something, it'd be cutting and pasting where I select it to be. But when I'm on a track, things change a little bit. And let me just make this bigger so you can see this. The move tool is very versatile. All right. When I move the tool to the edge of an audio clip, like right here, I can actually trim back the audio. Everyone see that I trimmed it? I got rid of a little bit of it. If I'm at the top and not on the edge, it becomes a move tool. So I can just kind of move it around, move this clip a little bit here, a little bit there. Another thing you can do with the move tool is now change fades. So this little gray box right here, I actually can click and drag in and create a fade. And you can actually shape that fade too, by the way. It's either a progressive or a regressive fade. Some people call it the S curve of the fade, but you know, you can make it linear and look like that, which is just a straight fade up. And that basically allows you to fade up the audio. You can hear it like this. Nope, don't have my quick keys set up for this. There we go. I got it. Okay. And you can hear it gradually getting louder, correct? And that's what a fade does, right? It gradually fades in and out things. You're going to be using this for your audio. You know, occasionally you're going to be fading in and fading out clips. The other thing the move tool can do in its natural state is grab some automation. See this yellow line here? This yellow line represents volume. You can change it. I can click on it, create a little node, create another node here, and now I can actually move that node. So that is a fade down to bed level. Or opposite, I can fade it up just like I faded up this one. This is the same thing as doing this, by the way. It's either I do this or I do that. Same thing, same result. So here it is again, if you wanted to hear what that would sound like. So there's the fade up. All right, so you can do it either way. Neither way is wrong if you wanted to do a fade. Some people prefer grabbing the edge of the box here. That some people like this because then they can curve it very easily right away. And other people like to work in strictly automation, which I don't mind either. It's the same result. You're going to get a fade either way. Let's go to the back end of the clip really fast and just see if there's any changes. I do have a fade at the back end, so I'm good with that. I can still trim at the back end. That's good. I can still move it at the back end, so nothing really changes when it comes to the front or back of a clip. The functions are still the same of the move tool. And of course, if I wanted to move this track to another track, I could do that as well. I don't have to just move it down the timeline. I can move it to another track. Or if I hold Option, I can actually copy it to another track. Everyone see that? Hold down Option, click on something, drag it, it creates a copy. That's a function that's computer-wide. You want to see what I mean by that? If I take this file and I hold down Option, I can make a copy. Here's a quick little trick for you. Anytime you want to make a copy of something, hold down the Option key and drag it, and it makes a copy. You're welcome. That's for you to have and to hold for the future. It works in Word. It works on the internet. It works in any application on your computer. So use it because it's very handy, that's for sure. Again, moving it around in the timeline is very easy. Moving up and down also is quite easy. Move tool. Any questions about the move tool and its functions, its ability? No? Really? All right. So let's move on to the razor tool. Yes. The razor tool has the ability to cut a file in a specific place. Everyone see that I cut that file in two? It's like the magician, right? And then they separate out the magician's box. The lovely assistant gets split in two, and then they put things like hula hoops between them and such. No one's ever seen magic, huh? Ever? Nothing? All right. So what I was able to do here is create a cut in between the two. Now that it's cut, there's certain things that are going to happen. If I select this clip, I can fade out. And if I select this clip, I can fade in. So now I have these fades on either side of the clip if I wanted them. Again, this is what it looked like before. And then I cut it. and then it was 2 separate clips. But here's the deal. See the file names here? Open to 48.1, open to 48.1. Why isn't 2 different files? Why isn't it 2 different names? It's still the same what? File. I didn't split the WAV file that it came from. Look, I mean, you don't see out on the desktop open to split in half. You don't see in my project folder a conform file that's split in half. It's still the same file. It's just in the software, I'm manipulating that file and making it into 2 separate clips. Both clips will reference the old file. So I can do any number of things non-destructively in order to get the result I'm looking for. Let me show you what I mean. So I cut this clip in half. Now I'm going to drag it over each other. Anyone know what that's called? It's on the board today. Crossfade, that's right. It is a crossfade. And more than likely what I would probably end up doing is trimming this down a little bit. Since I'm still in my move tool again, I would trim it down just a little bit. And then I'd pull it into a crossfade mode here, just like that. So it would kind of crossfade to each other. So what did I do in essence? I eliminated that spot where there was nothing going on. Look, this is what it looked like before. There's nothing in the middle right there. I was able to make a cut, trim it back both sides, and then push it into each other. So now it happens simultaneously. This is a very important editing technique. You might even use this for your interviews. Not to say you're going to edit host to guest that tight. Won't feel natural. No one asks you a question and in like a split second you answer it. You have to have some natural spacing in between to hear the question and process the question and answer the question. It's got to feel natural, right? But Alejandro ended up going and recording his question. And in the middle of asking the question, he stumbles on the word. And then he records it again, or only records the back end again, where he started to stumble. So he could take the first take and the second take, cut out the bad parts, and match them up. And maybe use a really tiny crossfade and make it sound like it's a natural transition between the 2 takes. This is used a lot. This is an actual technique used a lot to take 2 different audio files or takes and put them together. Take out the bad, match it back up. Listen to it and fine-tune it until it sounds natural. You don't want any jump edits or dropouts or pause like that. You don't want that. Doesn't sound like natural conversation. Doesn't sound like someone talking. When we listen to these, we want to feel like this all happened in one shot. It should feel like a natural conversation. From you hosting to asking the first question to the person answering to your next question answering, next question answering, it should all feel like it flows naturally. We should never hear sound disappear. We should never hear any of the mistakes. We should never hear you talk in the background over the questions or before the questions. This is part of the editing. Like I said, I don't think any first-year student had to show this level of editing ever. They did it in one shot. Now, since we can't do it in one shot, we have to actually do it by editing. And it's going to help you. No one was ever forced to figure editing in the first few weeks. So the move tool and the razor tool can be used in combination with each other to accomplish certain goals. I like to use my quick keys. So instead of going up to the top here every time and clicking on them, V and R are used. So V is your move tool, and then I can go right into the razor tool with R, go back to V and use it to my advantage. Move things around. If I wanted to cut more, I go to R, cut this part out right here. I can go to V to delete it as the move tool. I could trim it back. There we go. And of course, if I wanted to now mush it together. Let's see how that sounds. See how quick it is now? But it didn't sound like there was a jump cut, there was a pause, there was a click in between. It literally went from one clip to the other without that whole pause in between. If it feels natural that way, then that's the way it should have been done. Questions about the razor tool? Anybody? Well, by the way, I want to show you this. So I'm going to make a copy of this here and a copy of this here, right? This is all three. In single razor mode, if I make a cut, I can only cut the one I'm on. Everyone see that? Okay, if I hit R again and I'm in multi-razor tool, then my cut goes through all of them. And all I had to do is select the multi-razor tool, which is here. There's a razor select and a razor all. So this allows you now to cut huge groups of edits. You can like cut up a whole verse and cut the whole thing out, including the music and the vocals and everything. I'll show you that again. Single razor tool, I'm just tapping the R button, allows you to cut just the clip you're selected on. Multiple or all allows you to do it up and down the entire selection point. So if I do it here, there they are. Just to give you a heads up on what the little multiple razors are doing up there. Okie dokie. Let's make a cut again. I'm going to go into here and just do a cut. I want to show you something fun. This is the slip tool. So the slip tool allows me to move audio within the clip without changing the edit point. Let me show you what I mean by that. Move this down a little bit. Slip tool on. And now look, I can move the audio within that area. I could pull back to the beginning again. Or I can put it back to where it was, where the edit makes. So I can actually pull in a little more audio there if I wanted to in this cut, in this clip. So the slip tool actually moves the audio behind the scenes. It's almost like I cut out a shoebox and you can see through the shoebox, right? I can do it right like that. Awesome. That's all the slip does. There's nothing magical to it other than that. Put these back together again. And last but not least, my selection tool. Love my time selection tool because this is actually how I used to be able to edit. When I came up in the world of editing and virtual editing, computer-based editing, really they weren't these kinds of tools there like you're accustomed to today. A lot of the tools we used in things like Sony Acid Pro or Sony Vegas or some sort of level of Audacity when it first came out. Some early Pro Tools stuff, they didn't have the tools like they do today that function the way they do today. So I get very used to how to edit using this time selection tool. And it's simple. You just click and drag and make a selection. And then you can just hit like delete. And now it's two separate clips again, right? So then I can move this one out. Look at that. They're two separate clips now. I didn't have to use the razor tool. All I had to do is make a time selection using this. And then I can actually copy it if I wanted to. Copy it and then paste it down to here. And look at that. This is how I started my editing career using basic functions that were in these softwares. The biggest one was this, is basically cutting up and cutting out things that didn't need to be there and then putting it all back together. And so you can do this across multiple tracks if you wanted to as well. Again, if I made a let's say a quick copy of this down below, and that selection is there. You can see that I can pull it out of the same area in all the clips that I needed to. So you could technically make a cut across all clips here, even without the razor tool if necessary, just using the time selection tool. So these tools, these four tools that are here, are the common tools that you're going to be using within the multi-track editor. Now we know we can actually double click on this and go over to the individual waveform editor. Remember this guy here? Yes? No? Maybe so? Anyone remember this one? Right, so this editor allows me now to focus in on this one track, this one clip. When I pull up that lava, look at the tools. Look at how they changed. Does everyone see that? The grayed out tools over in the multi-track that were over here, the little marquee tool, the lasso tool, the paintbrush, and the spot healing tool are all grayed out. I can't use them here, but when I come over to waveform, look at that. They're back in action. And this means that you are going to use these in the frequency spectral area. So if I wanted to copy this section and paste it over here, I could do that. You don't have to, but you could. If I want to lasso a section and free draw these frequencies and copy them over to this section over here, I can do that. These tools up here now have allowed me to use the paintbrush and really change the way processing happens here in the software. I also have a healing tool where I could change the size. This allows me to basically blend or help create some sort of change in this area. So if there were problems in my audio, I could actually use the healing tool to create better sounding audio. I could use the properties of one area of audio to affect the other area of audio. And I'm only saying this not because I'm going to be teaching any of this spectral stuff. I'm not. We don't have time in the curriculum for it. But I want you to see that these tools that are up here at the top, they don't go to waste. You just have to be in a specific function for them to open up and highlight. And then you could use them wherever they're necessarily used. So the main ones in the multi-track are going to be the move tool, the razor, the slip, and the time selection. But then, of course, like I said, you have your marquee, your lasso, your paintbrush, and your healing for when you're in waveform spectral analysis. So don't expect to use those in this layout when you're in multi-track. Now, what you guys are going to be doing more than likely is going to be working with multiple tracks. So you're going to be having one audio file on a track that's going to be your intro and your questions. The other audio track is going to be the other person's answers. So you're going to have two tracks with audio on them that are going to go back and forth. I'm going to let you know there never should be a point where I hear nothing or I hear both of you talking at the same time. So that's where the editing comes in. You're going to have to listen to clip by clip how it sounds by itself. And as you do that, you might find that there were some points where your audio and their audio change. Something was itching me badly. Anyway, probably my mustache. So if you look here, right, and I said to you, you should basically be looking at this and trimming it so you're catching no background sound as best as you can, like that, okay? I did this. And then let's say this is my question here and this is my answer there. Well, when I play this back, if it doesn't sound natural going from, it doesn't sound natural going from point A to point B, you might have to pull it out a little bit so it sounds like a natural spacing. But as you did that, this area right here between the two clips is actually dead space. It is void of all sound. That doesn't happen. There's always something there. If we just be quiet for a second, the microphone would pick up the buzzing of the room or the hum of the cars outside or something, the internal noise of the machine. Never would an interview ever just drop out to 100% no sound. And that's what's happening here. If you leave a gap like that, you are basically going from something to nothing to something again. And we're going to be able to hear it. You'll be able to tell in 2 seconds. So how do I solve this gapped issue? Right? You know, what would I do? Sure. So if I tried to trim the end up to this to meet that, great. And if I could do that without the sound or any sound coming through here, awkwardly, I would do that. Likewise, if there is sound there and I wanted to trim it back, then I'd probably go over to this clip and pull that one back to see if it matches up better or worse. Now, the other thing becomes fades, right? So maybe I want just a tiny little fade here and a tiny little fade here. And yes, there will come a point where maybe those two dip down to black, to 100% no sound. If that's the case, then what I'll have to do is take this guy and just pull him in just a little bit. Look how close they are to each other. You see how the fades almost act like a crossfade across two tracks? One's going out as the other one's coming in. I really don't go down to 100% no sound. I really don't ever dip to 0 dB here. There's something. At least it's not nothing, and I'm not going to get any pops or clicks because I did this type of edit. That's basically checkerboard editing, as we call it. You know, A, B, back and forth, up and down. You got to make sure that that checkerboard, A, doesn't drop out to 0 dB, and B, doesn't sound like you're popping and clicking between edits, which can happen if you're not careful. Yeah, Jose. Well, I mean, at the beginning and end are usually the bigger fades, right? If I'm fading in or out music, it's going to be a much longer fade. For me here, just as a precautionary, I would have that tiny little fade there so I don't hear a pop as it comes in or anything going out. And especially for here, you know, because we're cross-fading between two tracks, I would probably even get more specific where the end of this happens here and the start of this happens here. And see how that shape looks? So as one's going out, the other one's coming in, it never feels like you lost any energy. And you say, energy of what? They're not talking. I know they're not talking, but there's something there. There's something there. It's not 0 dB dead air. I mean, if we zoom in far enough, you could see there's something there. See? There's something there. It's not nothing. So it does matter, and you can hear it. So you got to be really careful. And again, this goes with my eyes and ears combination. I'm looking to see how it is going to look, and then I'm using my ears to back up the ideas that my eyes are confirming. And if it doesn't work, if that relationship isn't working in tandem, you're not going to get the edits you want. You're not going to get the high quality professional level edits that the pros can get. It's not hard to do. Professional level editing is not hard to do. You just got to know how to manipulate your tools to get the results you want and have the time and the patience to do it over and over and over again until it's right. You know how many times in editing I sit on like 2 seconds of audio for an hour trying to get it right? It sounds crazy. You'll go, oh, really? But yeah. But guess what? You're getting paid for that hour. So why not spend the hour? Right? There's no reason not to put all your time and effort into it. Maybe now it seems daunting, but when you get to the next level, maybe that hour cuts into a half an hour because you know how to get that edit. You know how to do that specific line of tasks you need to do to get a result. As of right now, I would consider myself a very fast editor. For the years of experience I've been editing things, I can put together commercials and stuff sometimes without even looking. I can lay out a whole scratch track of the vocals, the whole music bed, everything out before I even listen to a thing. And then I'd have to go back and fine tune every little bit of it. Yes. But that's part of the experience and the time it takes. And if you want to get to that point where you're making edits and you're doing, you know, really good stuff with your edits, the quality of the edit is good, well then, yeah, you got to practice the skills. And so that's why these projects in this class exist. For you to practice these skills day in and day out. Practice your editing, practice your file organization, practice your importing and exporting. And those are all things we're going to get to as the week goes on. Tomorrow and Thursday? Yeah, tomorrow and Thursday, we will be continuing with the editing session, but also now starting to explore these areas off to the side, a little more of the main area and the track header, and some of the other layouts that they do here. So right now I'm actually in a radio production layout, but we can also do audio to video layout. There's also other views here and also other workspaces that you can use. For instance, things like mastering, maximizing and editing, dual monitor screen setups, restoration, which is where I said audio restoration is a big deal. So some cool stuff we'll look at there. And like I said, also explaining this view meter, because right now, as you can see, the peaks of my audio on the way in are between -6 and 0. Now, if I turn down the output volume, right, to nothing, you can't hear me. Look at my VU meter. Isn't it still -6 to 0? So it doesn't matter what the sound is coming out. It matters what you see going in. So as I saw you guys editing and what your interviews look like, ask yourself this. At the bottom of the VU, while you're playing it back, at any point, did your audio get to -6? If it did, you're close. may not be all the way there, but you're close. If you're not close to -6, if you're way down at -28, -24, you didn't record the best you could. And I always say that this particular software, and really anything like Pro Tools or Logic, they're not wizard's wands. They can't fix what never was good to start with. But when you give it something good, when you have a good recording with good levels, these programs have the power to take it from good to great. And that's the only way it would work if you want to get to that next level. Any questions about my tools? Any questions about functionality? If you feel comfortable about sitting down today and getting your audio inside of Audition and starting to edit it up and lay it all out on your tracks, you should, because you should be doing that today. That's where you should be right now. Your audio is recorded. You're ready to put it into the software and you're ready to get going, editing and laying it all out. Tomorrow we'll talk about, like I said, the things of the software. We'll also discuss a little bit about music. And then on Thursday, we'll show you exactly how we want this back and forth to go, how I want the composition of the final product to be. A nice, polished interview from start to finish in about a minute. Nothing? Nothing else? All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. You guys make sure